So I asked Maina, is it safe to walk here? And she looked at me very puzzled and she said, well, yeah. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we're going to do episode 6, and this is going to be my first day in Liaozhong. Now before I continue with this video, I would like to remind everyone that even though we're at episode 6, please do keep in mind that this is literally only my second day in China. The past 5 episodes that I've shared with you was literally flying from South Africa to China, arriving in Beijing, traveling from Beijing to Shenyang, spending the night in a hotel in Shenyang, getting up the next day, going to McDonald's, and then driving to Liaozhong, and then finally seeing my home and going to bed. That was literally just my first day since arriving in China. So now I'm waking up and it's only my second day. So of course, I'm still in complete utter shock due to the extreme cold. I cannot explain enough how cold it was, okay? And of course, everything that I was seeing was maybe a first for me at the time. So if I found something strange or unusual, I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that as a South African who just came from South Africa, I had maybe never seen certain things before. So please don't take any offense if I call things strange or unusual. That just means that I had never seen these kinds of things before, and it was just new to me. So anyway, let's get right into it. Now, the next morning, which is now my first day waking up in Liaozhong and only my second day since arriving in China, I woke up really early when I heard the other teachers in the house and they were getting ready for work. So I literally just pulled the duvet over my head and I slept until about 10 a.m. Please keep in mind, it's only day 2 for me and my body was extremely tired. I was jet lagged. I was really not dressed appropriately because I didn't have the right clothes. It was cold. I was quite hungry. I hadn't really eaten much since I arrived there. We were just so busy that first day as well. So eventually I didn't want to get up because I was just really tired and jet lagged, but I got up and I decided to get some coffee. Now the night before, Maina had showed me that they have the water machine, which is like the water cooler, okay? And now as a 24-year-old at the time, I had never used a water cooler before because like back then in South Africa, if you owned a water cooler, you were like super rich, okay? Because us average normal folks, we drank water straight from the tap. I don't know if people still do that, if it's still safe in South Africa to drink water from the tap, but that's what we did. So a water cooler, I was like, whoa, this is really fancy. I'd never used one before, so I don't really know all the buttons and stuff, how it works. So the night before, Maina had showed me how it works because I think they turned their electronics off. They didn't like to waste energy. They were like super, conserving energy is a good thing, which obviously is. So she told me how to turn it on and I said, okay, I think I can do it. So the next morning when I had to go to check out the water cooler, I checked at the back and there were suddenly more buttons than I remembered. And I wasn't sure which buttons to push. So I was also really scared. I didn't want to break anything since I'd never used one before. So I turned on the green button. I figured green seemed safe enough. So I turned it on and I waited for like 10 minutes. And then when I tried, the water was still cold. So I then decided, okay, let me just turn on all the buttons. I'm sure something is going to happen. And sure enough, it was not even a short while later, I had boiling hot water and I was just so excited to have my cup of coffee. So since I was home alone and everyone was at work, I really enjoyed this, okay? I'm kind of a loner, okay? I love alone time. I love being by myself. I love just doing things on my own. And I'm also quite independent. I like to figure things out on my own. So since I was home alone, I was just like really loving it because like I said, I love being alone, okay? So I figured, okay, well, since I'm home alone, I can finally take a shower, okay? Keep in mind that this is now probably the 3rd day that I still haven't taken a shower. And if you know me, I love taking showers, okay? I take like 2 showers a day because especially in winter, it makes you feel warm, okay, first of all, and just come on, who doesn't love taking showers? So I was so excited to finally be able to take a shower after all this traveling. Can you imagine how I felt, okay? So I walked into the bathroom and then I saw the bathtub. And first of all, people told me that there are no bathtubs in China. So I was really surprised. I was like, whoa, they have a bathtub, you know, cool. I probably wouldn't fit into the bathtub because I was just really fat at the time. So they had a mounted shower head on the wall, but it wasn't like a mounted one. It was one of the ones that you could remove and you could spray the water everywhere. In South Africa, I remember, like, if you had a really fancy, expensive bathtub, you had this mountable shower head that you could take off. I remember as a kid, like, that's all I ever wanted in my bathtub was one of those shower heads that you could remove. I don't know why. It was super cool to me when I was a child. So I looked on the wall above the shower head, and they had this little, which we would refer to as a geyser, but it was mounted on the wall, and it was quite small, and I assumed that this was obviously the hot water tank. So I tested, I turned on the tap, and then as soon as I did, the water just sprayed everywhere because I didn't pay attention to which way the shower head was faced, and it was in fact not facing into the bathtub. So the water was spraying everywhere, and I was like freaking out, and I closed it, and then I positioned it in the right way, and then I tried again, and then sure enough, the water was like instantly hot, and I was super excited. So I ran, I grabbed all of my toiletries and supplies, and I went into the bathroom, and I took the best shower of my life. The only problem is when I had finished, I suddenly realized that I didn't take a towel. And I remember I specifically didn't pack a towel because when I moved to America, I packed my towel, okay? And then the house where I lived had like an abundance of towels, so I didn't even need a towel. So coming to China, I figured, well, my house will have an abundance of towels, but it in fact did not. And when I stood there, I was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? I don't actually remember what I did. I must have used like an item of clothing to dry myself or something. I honestly do not remember. So after my shower, I just felt like a new person. My hair was washed. I was warm. I was cozy. I was comfy. I felt really like comfortable. You know, a shower makes you feel really, really nice. So it was almost 2 p.m. at this time, and I decided to call Meina, and then she said that she would be there shortly to pick me up. I waited for about 10 minutes, and then I heard this like stampede coming up the stairs, and she had brought some kids with her to come and pick me up. So again, I was just nice and warm from my shower. Again, I still didn't have the right clothes because I hadn't had the opportunity to go and actually buy the appropriate, you know, northeastern clothes that you would wear in winter. So I was just nice and comfortable from my shower. And then as soon as we stepped out, the air was icy cold. And it was so cold that my nose on the inside actually froze up. And again, I mentioned in my previous video, that's one of the reasons why people wear masks here, because it keeps the cold out, okay? Your nose literally, like the inside of your nose will freeze up because it's so cold. So we went to a little corner store, and we quickly wanted to buy me some breakfast, even though it was 2 in the afternoon already. So Meina asked me if it was okay if I ate bread, and I said, well, of course, you know, I love bread. So I was a little disappointed though, because I was excited to start trying all the different Chinese food. I had heard that, you know, especially Northeastern food is really delicious, and I was just really excited to start eating, you know, all the delicious food. But, you know, I figured I'm sure as time goes on and our routines settle a little more, I'm going to start to enjoy all the different foods. So Meina bought me this little packet of bread that had the word milk written on it, and it had like these 6 long bread rolls in it. And it was really good. It tasted more like, I wouldn't say cake because it wasn't cake, but it wasn't bread. It didn't taste like normal bread either. It was kind of sweet. I felt like it was more like a desserty thing. It was really, really good. Now at this time, Miss Han took me to a store to look for warm tights. Now, if you don't know this, in the Northeast, we wear thermal clothes, okay? In winter, we wear these thick thermal pants, and we wear thermals inside our clothes because it is so cold. The only problem with this is that in winter, we have indoor heating in the north of China. So you are dressed like very hot for the outside weather, but then as soon as you go into a mall or the subway or even your own home, it's quite warm because, you know, it's really warm inside your house. Maybe you noticed in one of my other videos, I was actually wearing a jacket when I was filming because our heating hadn't turned on yet. And about 2 days ago, they turned on the heating, so the house is really comfortable and warm now, which is great. But at that time, obviously, I was living in Liaozhong and they still had the old houses where the heating element was on the wall. You still find those like in some of the older buildings in Shenyang. So we were looking for these warm winter thermal tights, and Miss Han told me that the shop there was too expensive. I think it was like 80 RMB or something. And then she said there's a big market in Shenyang that sells anything that you can think of, and the prices were really good, and you could also negotiate the price with them. So I was really excited to go shopping to get all of my winter gear, because they had all these like, you know, duck down winter coats, and I was literally just wearing like a little flimsy, pathetic South African little coat. It was like, I was really cold, okay? So anyway, after that, we went back home. It was the end of the workday for them, and we went back home. And then Miss Han and Emily, they asked me if I would like to watch TV with them, and I agreed. And of course, I couldn't understand a word that was happening on the TV. I just knew that I knew this before. I don't really know why I knew this, but I had already known that the dramas, the Chinese dramas, are always very, very dramatic. So even though I didn't understand what was being said, I could kind of figure out what's going on, because, you know, there's a woman crying and a man in the show, all of those things. So eventually, I went upstairs and I just had a little Skype session with my parents. And then after that, I was called for dinner. Now, I was really excited for dinner, okay? Mr. Chen was our cook in that house. He was like the main man. He was our chef. And poor guy, he was like surrounded by all these girls, and he was just always cooking the best food for us. Now, on this particular night, we had rice, of course, we had pork, mushrooms, and green vegetables. And then in the middle of the table was a big bowl filled with all kinds of things that I don't even know. So at the table, we had Meina, Michelle, Anna, Mr. Chen, Emily, and I. And they were all laughing at me because I was struggling to use my chopsticks to pick up my food. And then the rest of the meal, I kind of just sat there and I enjoyed my food, because they were all, you know, speaking Chinese. And of course, I just arrived there. Of course, I had no knowledge of the Chinese language at all. So because this food was extremely salty and rich, I mentioned this in my other video, the Dongbei food, you need your rice as a palate cleanser because the food is so tasty. Okay, so many different tastes. It's also very salty. It's like so delicious. I can't even tell you guys how much I love Dongbei food. But because of this, I was really thirsty, but I wasn't just thirsty for water. I really felt like I needed something sweet to just, you know, get all the saltiness out of my palate. So I asked Meina if we could go to a little corner shop. I could just buy some, you know, some things that I wanted to, you know, buy. And then she took me. She said that the shop on the corner closed at 9, but then the other one, there was apparently another one, closed at 11. Now, this was strange to me because in South Africa, there's like it's like a thing where you can have two of the same shops like in close vicinity to each other, because it's like a competition, right? So I was surprised when she said that, oh, it doesn't matter. This one here is already closed, because at this time it was 9:30. So this one was already closed, but it's okay. Just go to the one, you know, on the other side, which was maybe like 3 shops away from the other one. So now it was obviously nighttime, and we walked behind our building in the street. It was very, very dark and obviously very, very cold. So I asked Meina, you know, is it safe to walk here? And she looked at me very puzzled, and she said, well, yeah. Now, of course, I'm from South Africa. You do not walk in the dark at night, 2 women alone. You just don't do it, okay? Unless you want to die. Now, when we stepped into the shop, the lady behind the counter, she was like instantly surprised, like, whoa, why is this, you know, foreigner here in our town? So obviously we went into the shop, and all the different products, I had never been in a Chinese supermarket now, and everything looked, you know, different kinds of products, different kinds of, you know, flavors of things. Everything, even things like this, was super overwhelming to my brain at the time. But eventually I found what I wanted, and I bought a 2-liter Sprite, and I bought a small Coke as well, because I was really curious, because in Dubai on the airport, the Coke, I just didn't like it. It was much different than the Coke back home. So I was really curious to try the Coke in the mainland, because I really wanted to see, you know, what's the difference. And then I saw the box of Orion, whatever you call them, pies that Jack had bought on the train. And I remember loving those. So I got myself a box of those too. And all in all, the total came up to 18 RMB. And I was really surprised. I was like, wow, that is like a very good price, because I'm pretty sure 2-liter Sprites and Cokes back home like had become like incredibly expensive. So I was just really happy. It was my second day in China, my first day in Liaozhong, and I felt just like things were starting to calm down. You know, I had taken my shower, I had an amazing dinner, I had bought myself some treats I could enjoy, and I just had a more relaxing and calm day, even though I was still freezing cold. But things were starting to finally just settle down. I was starting to feel more, relaxed, and I was just now totally ready for this new adventure. And I was just so excited to start, experiencing things now that I had taken a shower and I had a good night's rest, and I was ready to do this.